Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Security Awareness Training. My name is Lee Nelson. I'm the founder of EDM Automation. We're your IT company, and we do IT services support and, of course, cybersecurity. I sit on the board of the Southeastern uh, Virginia Better Business Bureau and serve as a consultant just on these topics for any cases that come up. And I've had years of experience as a IT company. One thing we see uh, constantly is people who need help after they've been victimized with cyber attacks of different types. So today we're going to discuss that. And hopefully we're going to make it fun. We're going to try to get you through this and satisfy any securities awareness training requirements you might have. So let's get started. All right. First, a little fun here. Can you find the mistake? Take a look at what I have showing and just see if you can just quickly see where there's a problem. I'll give you a second. All right. I just underlined what you probably didn't see because your eyes are not really trained to do that, right? But that's exactly what the bad guys do. They're all about distraction and misdirection. And they're basically doing their bad deeds through different tools, all which mostly fall under the term phishing. And phishing is particularly important to you. But when I say you, I mean any organization. Generally, criminals are looking to try to reach staff and people, and they're going to try to reach the people that aren't particularly trained in cybersecurity through various methods, but particularly through just communication. And phishing is their preferred way to go through it. It's when scammers try to fool you to think they are someone you trust in order to make you do something. So let's explore that. There's basically 7 types of phishing scams. Let's let's start with email phishing because it's so prevalent, right? You get email, in that email, you've got lots of email. You've got spam, you have uh, constant emails coming here and there. But the ones that we're talking about today, they look like very legitimate emails coming from your bank. Could be PayPal, Google, Amazon, or even the CEO or president of your company. But when you really look at it, you actually can determine that it is not from them. So this example here, um, there's a few things wrong with it, but it's not easy to determine it, especially if you're in a hurry and you just get going through your email real quickly. So the email domain is not the official google.com domain. We start with that. Now, a lot of people may not know that, but in a moment, we'll talk about when you should actually check. Because number 2, there's an alert for immediate action, and that's a real key to any criminal activity. pretty much has a need for immediate action. And then finally, there's in this case a redirect, meaning that there's a button that says check activity. So if you read that, it says check activity. So you assume that if you click that, it's legit. Actually, no, all it is a button that leads you to a criminal website. And that website has a web address, or as we call a URL. If you hover over that with your mouse, you would actually see that the website address that it's going to take you is not legitimate in itself. So let me tell you what criminals want to do. They want you to either click on something so they can download something on your computer, which would be software that whose intention is to do an assorted amount of nefarious things. It could be key logging. It'll start out with just getting on your computer and gathering more software. What it's going to try to do is, and will do, is start to copy your keystrokes, find out where your email is sent from, get all the credentials for email, um, and then ultimately begin to take all your, monitor all your emails to see, first of all, who's sending you money and who are you invoicing. If you are one invoicing, if there's somebody in your organization invoicing, they will look to see who you're sending to, get those contacts, start to send emails, spoof emails, I should say, meaning that they're going to send emails that look like they're coming from you or from your company with legitimate invoices, and they're going to get them to try to pay. But when when they go to pay, um, it's going to end up sending those payments to the wrong places. And that's what criminals do. And they love email. So here's a few things just right off to look at when you get your emails. There's also spear phishing. So we talked about email phishing, but spear phishing is where they basically target you more specifically. They learn something about you. They can find information. Maybe they found it in your email, but more likely they get it from social media. They do some more research on you. They learn about your family members, where you work, who's your boss, and then they start sending you um, information. That could be email, and then that email is from somebody you know, and it may have topics that you're familiar with, and the greeting is personalized. Um, and ultimately, in the message, they're trying to build trust before a phishing link is sent or some kind of action is required. This is particularly powerful for them because your guard is down if you think you know who's sending you something. So be on the lookout. There's ways to do that. We'll talk about it. Okay, how about smishing? Yeah, they use a lot of these names. They're almost funny. But in this case, this is where they're using text messages for phishing scams. So one thing they know is that people respond to text and instant messages faster than email. So quite often, even now, I get text messages that appear to be coming from my bank, from Wells Fargo, which I know are not legitimate. But in fact, sometimes when I first see it, my first reaction is almost to click it and do whatever they say because it's so compelling. It looks so real, and that's the power of text messaging. However, and I've been around this for a while, so I know what these things look like, and so even though I am tempted right off, and if I'm in a hurry, I may flinch for a second, but I won't do it. Now I need you to think about the next text you get, make sure that you think through it before you do something. But a lot of times they'll use something like, we've detected an unauthorized access to your account. We need you to log in and verify that, or change your password or whatever. They'll have different messages that are urgent. So there's that commonality, urgency. But they ultimately going to want you to click on something, go somewhere. And so some of these scams, they want you to go to an email site that looks just like maybe your bank login screen. Could be anything that you deal with. And then it will ask you to sign in, which means you're going to type in your username and then your password. Once you do that, they have all your information. So that's their typical uh, modus operandi. Let's move on. How about a Google search? Can you ever imagine that when you go to do a Google search, that some of the highest ranking links are actually criminal? Yeah, it's pretty amazing, but it's actually fairly easy for them to do. They Scammers will spend quite a bit of money to get ranked very high, and they'll use something they know people search on, and they'll change its Venmo, for example, in this example, comes up as second result. And if you were looking for Venmo, it looks very legit. So why wouldn't you just click on it, right? But the actual web address um, says Venmo, but the the actual web address is sites.google.com. And what that means is it's not Venmo.com, right? It's a place where on Google anybody can set up a web page. And that's what they've done, right? And then they've actually created the website to do something for them. So it could have a login page, it could have a page that asks for information, could have a it could have a link on it that once you click on it, it downloads software to your computer. So while that's shocking, it certainly can be done and is done. Social media scams, well, again, social media is prevalent. People are using it all the time. It becomes second nature to use it and not really even, yeah, be suspicious, right? But actually, it's full of fake accounts. Once they decide, and when I say they, criminals pick someone, and there's probably reasons why they're picking on certain people. They do like older people because older people are less tech savvy, number one, more trusting, number two, or sometimes just, not as aware of what they should be in the first place. So easy targets in their eyes. What will happen is you may get a message from somebody that you know. Well, right off, it seems like you know them, so why wouldn't you trust them? But if you actually look deep into, um, for example, somebody who's sent you a message, the actual uh, the address may be slightly off, may have an underscore, maybe something that's not the real McCoy. If they have 0 followers, that's a flag. Um, if you have friend requests from people that are already connected with you, that would be odd. Um, but look mainly for slight variations and really avoid or you know be suspicious of anything that has odd characters, underscores, yeah, could be it could be periods or apostrophes. These are the signs, telltale signs that it's should at least be a little more suspicious. Have you seen QR codes? Because they're certainly more prevalent than they've ever been. They're around. You might even just go into a restaurant and they say, "Oh, you want to see the menu? Just scan the QR code." And the QR code is just a barcode. Your camera on your phone will recognize a web address when you take a picture of it. And when you click that web address, it'll open. And if it's legitimate, it may just have a menu for that restaurant if you're at a restaurant. But in real life, these are being used to scam people quite often because the QR code looks legit. It does take you to some place, but that place may be completely false. So again, they're going to try to get you to a site that gets more information from you or has you click a link that may download malicious software. It's really easy to do from a criminal standpoint. For example, if you were at a restaurant, you could slap your QR code over their QR code. It's that easy. And online, of course, you could post something with a QR code that looks like free pizza in this case, but may get you to go somewhere totally different. Hey, finally, there's vishing scams. Vishing for voice, yes, like phone calls and this is newer, and obviously it's gaining traction because it's very powerful. This is when scammers spoof a phone number that looks identical to a known number, like your bank, and they literally can do a lot more now. So there's a couple ways. First, and this is probably the older way, they get you to call a number that appears like it's going to the bank or someplace that you know, but in reality, it's just going to a criminal uh, organization's receptionist area, basically. Uh, so it's very easy to do that. But a more, a more, I guess, a worse way that's being used right now is that they're actually calling you. And it looks like it's the bank. And yeah, maybe they just call you and act like they're with the bank. And then finally, there's one where you get a call, and it looks like from someone you know, and it might be someone in your organization. And there's a very quick message on there. It may, like if it was your boss, it may say, uh, we need, we have an emergency and we need to get some personal information from you right away. It sounds just like your boss. So how do they do that? Well, that's part of why cybersecurity has just gotten much more complex and difficult um, to prevent. It's called AI or artificial intelligence, as you may have heard the term, but artificial intelligence can be applied to like simple recordings. I could get, I could call you and have a conversation with you, record it, and then I could take that tape, or I'm sorry, that recording, and run it through very inexpensive AI software that will then, uh, it will take your voice and it will replicate it. And it will replicate it in such a way that I can type out any message and it will say that message as if it was you, and it will sound just like you. Yeah, it's devious and effective. So even now, you have to be very careful. And I'm sure the question you have is, well, wow, how would you ever know? Well, if you get a call from your bank and they're saying that you need to send some money or do something urgent, and I keep using the word urgent because that's again, there's going to be a theme here. They want you to do something urgently. So anything that requires urgence, you should take a moment and reflect. So one of the things you could do here is actually hang up and call the bank and ask them, is somebody actually trying to call me in regards to this? So you can confirm and verify. So AI has now made not only this extremely effective, but of course, all the emails that you've seen. Yeah, it used to be a long time ago. You'd get an email that was malicious from a criminal, and you'd kind of know it. It looked a little odd. We would have some bad spellings and be coming from a unknown, you know, email address or whatever. You could sort of figure it, but that's not the case anymore. AI has made it so easy for criminals to make really compelling, legitimate looking emails. And that makes it harder for you. So start with, if it's urgent, don't let the emotions cloud your judgment. Stop, call and verify that you're talking to the correct person. Check the address, always check the email address and URL for spelling mistakes. Enable multi-factor authentication. I can't tell you how important that is. And I'll tell you a little in just a short bit why. It's look at the style of the message and ask questions. Most importantly, we're your IT company. If you're not sure, call us. Call IT if you're not sure, because we'll be able to answer that question very quickly. Let's talk about passwords real quickly. Um, you would think if you have a password, you're in good shape, but actually, this goes back to computing power and AI and the tools that criminals have now that they didn't used to have. For example, you can make a password that has 7 characters, and with their password cracking software, they can break that in 1 minute. It's not very long, is it? 8 characters takes them an hour. Now, here's the thing about criminals. They don't want to spend too much time on anything. There's too many easy targets for criminals. So if you have 8 characters versus 7 characters, that 8 characters is going to take them an hour versus 1 minute. Already, they're less likely to wait, unless they know something about you that's really important. You get to 9 characters and it takes 3 to 4 days. Do you think a criminal wants to mess around with something for 3 to 4 days? It's again, it would have to be very important. 10 characters gets you to 7 months. It would take their software 7 months to crack 10 characters in your password. Excuse me. 11, 40 years. And 12 characters, 2,000 years. So yeah, once you get past, certainly past 10 characters, there's no interest in criminals wanting to break it. Now, however, well, you know, uh, you do want it to have some complexity, some lowercase, some uppercase, some numbers, maybe some characters like exclamation marks, question marks, things like that. These do help actually. It actually makes it more difficult for their software. But in the end, I will say this. If a criminal is already on your computer, they may already have your password. Or let me rephrase this. If you use the same password everywhere, and maybe for accounts that are not just with work, and one of the places you use it at gets compromised, it means, or breached, it means that some criminals got in, got their data, they would have got your password. And they're going to use that. They're going to figure out who you are, where you are, where you use your account, or that password, or at least your emails. And they're going to attempt to use the password they got at every place you might go. And quite often they're lucky enough to get into important things like financial banks and financial institutions where you might keep stocks and bonds. So passwords need to be long. If that's difficult for you, you might want to use a phrase. Uh, for example, it's a beautiful spring day. I mean, that seems like a long password. It's actually easy to remember. And it's so long that, it's very effective. But don't reuse your passwords. And for sure, don't reuse passwords at places outside your work. So 11 billion accounts were stolen from hacked sites and apps. Uh, so even if you have a strong password, as I was mentioning, it may have already been stolen from someplace where, uh, for example, the whole Adobe at one time got hacked, and if you had an account with Adobe and you used the same password, they would have it. So one thing that we do as an IT company, and we do it for your organization, is we run a periodic dark web scanning that picks up anything that's being sold on the dark web with your company's domain. The domain is the part of your email address that actually has, well, it has the name of your company most often or parts of your company in it. And we look for what happens. Not we actually look for that and we find all the accounts that have been compromised and the passwords that were compromised. And we get that in a report form and we show it to your company. In this slide, I'm just using an example.com, but for your company, it would be whatever your email address is. So it may have might have you, it might have other people in your organization using that email, that last domain part of your email, the .com part, and it will show where it's being sold on the dark web, which is the internet, but it's the internet that criminals use, not you. And that account it will literally, I mean, the report will show, yeah, every place they've used it that was compromised, when it was compromised, and what the password is. If we identify that, of course, we immediately notify everybody. Number one thing is to change the password. Make sure that passwords from place to place are not the same. And that we also instruct people to enable multi-factor authentication, especially for anything related to financial. So, talking about multi-factor authentication. So if you ever get, if there's a case where criminals have your information, there's a lot they can do with it. Frankly, it's fairly easy, but the way you can protect yourself is to enable multi-factor authentication. And what that is it means that, for example, if you went onto your bank website and you went to log in and you put in your username and password, it would then ask you for a code, or it would text you a code and ask you for the code. There's a couple ways that it does it. And it's really easy to enable this. Almost all banks have this as just a check mark now. So you can go to your bank and look up, privacy and security, these types of things. And it will give you, it will talk about multi-factor or two-factor authentication. And a lot of times it's just a checkbox, enable. Now there's different types of multi-factor authentication. One might be where it just sends you a text. Now this works, and I certainly, if that's what's available, do it. And it's easy for the bank, it's easy for you. So you go to log in and you put in your username, your password, and then you'll look on your phone. They will have already, basically, they'll send you a text message that has a number in it. You put that number in on the website, and now it'll let you in. Now, if you think of this logically, why multi-factor authentication works so well is because the only way that you would get into your account is if you have your phone, your physical phone. So you can't be in another country or another state, right, and try to fake it, because you would have to have that physical phone. That's why this is so important. Now, it is better to use what we call authenticator apps, and you can download these on your phone. For example, there's Google Authenticator, there's Microsoft Authenticator. Um, you can search those in your app stores and they'll download. And a lot of places like your banks and anything that's, really important, they will have, typically they will work with Google Authenticator and it'll give you a way to set it up and you just go on your Google app and that Google Authenticator app will create new numbers every so many seconds. And all you have to do is put your number in. So you don't need to wait for a text. You do. That's actually a little more safe and effective because now it's actually an app on your physical phone device. Whereas, yeah, text could potentially, this is very difficult, but it could potentially be hijacked, as happened. But as I said, it's certainly a text message is better than nothing, much, much better. But an authenticator app is even better. And finally, there's something called a physical USB key, which is best, but definitely a little more restrictive, a little more difficult for most people to use. One thing we're going to talk about real quick is public Wi-Fi, any Wi-Fi. So again, if you go into uh, it could be any business, might be a coffee shop, and they have Wi-Fi, they have you, well, more or less, you'll get to a login screen. Problem is, criminals know that, and will oftentimes present a spoofed network. So number one, if you're looking for Wi-Fi networks, you might see one that looks like the one you want, and you click on that, and it's criminal. Or they push a website that pops up, and again, it's criminal, looks legit, but as soon as you get on it, they basically can see everything that you have, um, where you're going, what you're doing, and pretty much any of the data that travels between you and the websites that you go to. So um, be very suspicious. Make sure that number one, that you are connecting to the legitimate business site, the Wi-Fi. You may want to also enable the firewall on your device if it's not already, should be. And you can use a VPN, which is a virtual private network. These are, if you look up VPN, if you do a Google search, you can find a lot of times that you can get VPNs pretty cheap. And don't go for the free ones because a lot of times they're owned by criminals, but I mean, for very little money, a VPN gives you a direct tunnel to the internet that even if it was Wi-Fi that was from a criminal, if you get on using a VPN, they can't get to your data, your information. You're creating a tunnel that's secure. So I would say look into that if you're doing, especially if you're doing a lot of Wi-Fi and out and about. It will protect you on the internet a lot better. And what do criminals want to get out of everything? Used to be ransomware was the biggest thing. This is actually changing. Now they actually want your contacts and who you're sending, you know, invoices to, and they want a lot of information. Certainly, they want all your passwords. But in the end, um, they want to lock up your data, hold it for hostage, and when they do that, it's uh, obviously they have to get on your computer some way. Excuse me. And when they do, and they do lock up your data, which is called encryption, they'll encrypt it in a way that you can't use it. They will then ask for money for you to get that data. And that's where the term ransomware came from. These days, it's starting to change. It's now more about extortion. Uh, so they'll definitely they'll get your data. But in essence, they'll do less work because what they're going to do is more or less blackmail you. They're going to ask for money in order to not do things, which may be that there's so many things. You know, sending emails to all your clients. Um, it can be a lot of things. It could be that they're going to take your data and make it available to the public. Now, if this is sensitive information like patient data, that's a huge problem. So these days, they don't even have to really encrypt it. They copy it. They take it and get control of it, and then they can extort it. But ransomware is the name that is most often used. But as I said, it's a changing landscape. So we're going to talk about how to avoid ransomware, but all the things we've talked about are part of how you avoid any criminal or malicious attempts. Don't download files from random websites. Start with that. Beware of phishing emails that we talked about. Be suspicious. Don't use your company email or password for personal stuff. And don't store password, text files, or spreadsheets on your computers. These are just a couple things. Now, as an IT company, we put in our security stack. And so what we're going to try to do is prevent them from ever getting, like even if you did click on something and if you click on something and it downloads, typically it has to run, meaning it has to install on your computer or your device. Our software, our security software will not only block it, it'll block it we use zero trust, meaning that we already know what is legitimate. And if you try to install something that hadn't been there before, it will block it first. And then in that way, potentially stop any malicious or criminal activity. In fact, our security stack will prevent it from even trying to run something else. A lot of times, criminal software will try to run something, a command within your computer, using your computer to run it. We're using best of breed, kind of world-class cybersecurity software that uses AI and logic to ask questions like, should this software or should this command be run, by something that was never here before, or maybe even a program like, let's say, Google Chrome web browser. Should Google Chrome web browser be able to run Microsoft PowerShell? Doesn't make sense. It will stop it. This is called ring fencing, and it's just one of many ways that our security stack will help. But it's really up to the individuals to be cognizant of the fact that you're constantly being bombarded, you're constantly being attacked. You got to keep you have to keep your suspicions up, especially when looking at emails and websites, downloads, things of that nature. Even USB. Let's say that you have a flash drive. Um, don't plug in. I mean, if somebody gives you a flash drive, be very careful with that. A lot of times they may have criminal software on it and not even know it. If you try to charge something that has USB, be very careful. Public charging stations, actually, a lot of them have been compromised. This is, yeah, very hard to detect, and obviously it's a real problem. Let's say you go to the airport and you try to charge your phone. I mean, it just seems so, like why should you worry about that? But actually, that's where they do it the most. So be very wary. Um, and if you do have something on a external USB device, you may want to encrypt it. If you need to know more about encrypting, I can certainly contact us. Finally, wire fraud. Never, 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 never send money based on a urgent request that you have not verified. Um, so this happens all the time. You get caught up in the moment, and maybe you get an urgent request from your president or CEO or somebody important, and your immediate reaction is to quickly do something. But again, I wanted to emphasize urgent. If you have anything that's urgent, and especially if it's asking for you to do something with money, step back, take a deep breath, relax, and start to look at the legitimacy and how you might be able to confirm this is real. Starting by calling that CEO or that bank. All right. So thing is if you do get to the point where you've um, wired money, the bank may not be able to help you at that point because you ended up doing it. Now when this first started, they were trying to help people, but I can tell you now, from everything I'm seeing, the banks are not they're not covering you anymore. They can't. It just happens too much. It's very expensive. We've seen people do some very, very bad things. Um, they've sent very large amounts of money to banks that aren't even in our country. So beware of wire fraud. But anytime you get a request to send money, be very, very suspicious. So as you said, call and verify. You can call a known number like a number you've used before for that vendor management system. Make sure that the bank info matches. Call and verify any request to change info on the file, like phone number or address or bank info. And there you have it. We made it through securities awareness training. And hopefully this has helped you personally. And also, hopefully we've met some regulatory compliance requirements as well. Thank you very much.